Hello and welcome to this week's Hobbytime at Healys video. Thank you very much for tuning in. In this video I'm going to be talking about my first impressions of the new 9th edition codexes from what we've seen from the Space Marine and Necron editions. So grab yourself a lovely cuppa and let's dive on in. Now, before we dive in, I just want to give you guys a heads up. This is not a comprehensive breakdown of the Space Marines and Necron codexes. I'm not going to be doing like a page-by-page look through and talking about what I like and don't like in terms of the content and the rules. What this is actually more of a video on my impressions of the codexes themselves, the new layouts, sizes, formats, lots of things like that. I will be doing some comprehensive coverage of the actual codexes. That will be coming soon, so watch this space. But as it stands, obviously, just wanted to let you know kind of right from the get-go what I'll be talking about in this video. So to kick things off, the first thing I noticed about the new 9th edition codexes is the size of the physical codex itself. So for comparison, I have got here my 8th edition Adeptus Custodes Codex. So I'm going to compare it to the Necron one. Is actually, when you line them up, you can see here that the Necron one is actually taller and wider than the Adeptus Custodes one. These are all lined up here. So first off, the size is bigger. I couldn't quite figure out why the size would be bigger at first, because obviously A4 or just slightly bigger than A4 seems to make sense. But actually, when I compare it to a Battle Tome from Age of Sigmar, so I've got my Stormcast Eternals one right here, they are their same size. So the Battle Tomes and the new 9th edition codexes are all the same size, which means on your bookshelf, if you are a player of both games, they're going to line up really nicely. They are a little bigger, which makes it maybe a bit more complex if you're using like an old satchel bag, and these ones are a little bit larger. I mean, it's only slightly bigger than A4, but it's noticeable enough when you feel it. It's definitely more weighty than the previous edition codexes, but it is perfectly in line with the Battle Tomes from Age of Sigmar. I guess it's more just making sure that everything is the same size. So on the bookshelf, they can line up really nicely and neatly. One sort of size bag. They don't have to worry about why the 40k ones are smaller. So yeah, so the first thing I noticed was the slightly larger size of the codex. So the second thing I noticed, which I think everybody noticed right at the beginning, was the price. So the cost in Great British pounds is £30 now for a codex, whereas previously the codexes were about £25. It's the first time we've really seen a big step up in a while, in a long time, for the prices of the codexes. And a lot of people weren't really happy. They didn't quite understand why they had to pay £5 more for a codex. For me, I think it's just the inevitable change that we were expecting to see. The codexes have always stayed at kind of a flat rate, but now they actually pack in so much more. So we have more data sheets, so obviously quite more pages. The larger size has to come into the printing costs. We also have the Crusade rules that are now in these codexes. So that's new rules for a new game type, so that's more pages, and as well as the digital codes we have at the back, which allow us to unlock them using the free Warhammer app. So all of that has to be factored into the costs, and personally I'm not really that fussed. An extra £5 isn't too bad. I mean, it's effectively the price of paintbrush or maybe a couple of paints. It's not really that bad in my opinion. The fact that the price has stayed at £25 for so long, it's just that inevitable change, and the quality as well matches with that in terms of what we see with the physical product itself. It's really nice finish on it, made of sturdy materials. The pages are a little thicker and a slightly better grade of paper. You can kind of notice all of this when you compare it to the 8th edition codexes. That being said, the 8th edition codexes aren't bad, it's just these ones are noticeably higher quality in terms of the physical products used. So for number 3, the next thing I noticed in here was actually the content. Now, in terms of rules to fluff and story, previously we would always see that the vast majority of the codex would actually be kind of lore, which isn't a bad thing for any sort of, people like myself. I love sitting and reading the lore in the codexes. I think it's great, it's really enjoyable. But a lot of people just kind of skip straight past it and go straight to the rules. And you would get the few people grumbling going, why am I paying for lore? It's just the same lore as previous codexes, blah 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 blah. The reality is they do change up the lore. Some of it is the same because it has to appeal to new players as well as old players. But actually, when we look at the breakdown, if I showed you this divide here, the largest section that we have is actually the rules, which makes a really nice change. This is for the Necrons anyway. So the Necron Codex is about 119 pages long. With the rules themselves, so the lore stops at page 45, and that includes So page 45 all stops. And that actually includes like the pictures of painted models and things like that. Then we have this really nice piece of artwork here in the middle of some of the new miniatures, like the Silent King and the new Satan Shard. Then we go, boom, onto the rules. And all of that onwards, this is all rules. It includes all the Crusade stuff, all the data sheets, and all your dynastic codes, stratagems, everything like that. And that carries on from page 48 through to page 119. So for the first time in a while, we've seen the ratio shift from lore to rules, where we now have more rules pages than lore. I think that's great. It's more to dive into. I mean, I'm not saying that the lore in here is being cut by any sort of stretch of imagination. There's more rules now. So we still have 45 pages of good stories and things like that. Then we have about 75 pages of rules, which is brilliant. I think it's great. There's actually 120 pages, not 119. So, because there's this little cool reference page at the back. So yeah, immediately there, that big rules change and split in it is, I think, is a really good move moving forward. So the next thing I noticed in terms of the codexes is obviously we're going to talk about the layout of the rules inside, which I think they've made a great step forward. Previously, when we looked at, say, the old 8th edition codexes, you would have some rules before the data sheets, some after, and then you would have kind of like your points list at the back. You would have the armory, which would have all of the weapons in it as well, but the layout wasn't the best because some rules you had to flick to the front of the rules section, some to the back. There was like some filler pages, so you would kind of flick between, and it was kind of, looking back, it was actually a little clunky when you needed to find out that specific rule. Now, however, everything is in a very good logical order. So you start off with obviously just information on the rules, and then basically there's this little contents page that we have just here as well. Which basically breaks down what pages you need everything to go to. Really helpful, because that's just for the rules section. We then move on to, say, your detachment abilities. You then go to your dynastic codes. You create your own codes, which I think is brilliant. Then we go to stratagems, and I'm going to come on to stratagems in a little bit as well. Then you have what they call the Cryptex Arcana in this one. So it's not necessarily relics, but it's special stuff that you can add to your Cryptex. Warlord traits, special warlord traits, then relics. Then your powers, like everything's laid out in a really logical sense, almost as if it's following the same way you would choose these things when mustering your army and writing your list. And I think it's just the care and attention that's been put into that to make it a much smoother transition through the book is great. You then have the Crusade section, and then you go onto your data sheets. And a little bit of information about sort of data sheets and how they're laid out. It's really good. I absolutely love, and this reminds me of when the old 5th edition codexes, when you used to have that extra page that folded out at the back that had kind of all the points and the breakdowns. You now have obviously your weapon profiles, which cover 2 pages. They're really nicely laid out. And then you have your points values. And I absolutely love how these points values are laid out in here. It's all done in a really nice way. They've even put in the extra points for like your Cryptex Arcanas, which would be the same for the Space Marines, where you have your Master of Sanctities and things. It's just really, really nicely laid out. You then have a glossary and a reference page at the back, just for those common rules. So this little reference page at the back is going to be so helpful, because it has your dynastic codes, and links to whichever pages it needs. You've also got in here your command protocols, your detachment abilities, what living metal does, reanimation protocols, all of these really helpful rules, where it gives you a quick sort of cliff note, like the cool rule book, where we saw like the red bullet points. But if you need more information, there's the reference guide to go back to the full article if you need it. I think, yeah, really, really nice layout of the way that's been done. So, and finally, the last thing that I really like about the new layout is the stratagems page. Now you can see here is the stratagems have all got different colour-coded headers, and that means it's the type of stratagem, the category it falls into, which I think is super helpful. So, for example, you have battle tactic stratagems that are all kind of put together. These are all things that you can kind of do, like in your shooting phase, kind of in the fight phase, things like that. Things that are going to help you whilst you're, in the midst of battle, so to speak. You have your epic deed stratagems then next, which are things like in your command phase, or just generally exactly say epic deeds, so help with a resurrection roll for your reanimation protocols, or helps with your characters or your powers of the Satan or your shards, things like that are kind of really helpful things exactly as it says, like an epic deed. You then have requisition stratagems, you've got strategic ploy stratagems, and then you have war gear stratagems. And I think the fact that these are laid out and they're all colour coded is really, really nice, because it means if you're in your shooting phase and you think, well, what can I do in my shooting phase? You're most likely you can have a quick flick through the battle tactics and maybe look at the epic deeds. That's about it. War gear stratagems are, well, okay, well, I'm only really going to use any of these war gear stratagems when I muster my army. Again, I think just super helpful. Like I said, a lot of logic and a lot of care is being put into these, which I think is great. And there we kind of have it. So that was my kind of review of what I think I like about the physical codexes themselves, layout changes and things like that. There will be more videos coming up soon with a bit more of a comprehensive breakdown of me reviewing the Space Marine Codex and a separate one about the Necron Codex. So, and I talked a lot about how much I like the love and care that have been put into these codexes in the new redesign. I am aware that we still have some proofreading and typo issues in a few of the codexes. That's one thing I think Games Workshop massively need to improve on, is having the proofreaders go through these better. Some things will slip through the net, the occasional spelling mistake, but full-on rules issues or incorrect wordings of weaponry, that's something that still needs to be worked on. So other than that, I'm really happy with the codexes. I don't really have much of a problem with them. If there's anything you think that I've missed talking about the physical codexes, please let me know in the comments. But other than that, that's pretty much it. So a few things just to mention as well is, like I said, watch this space for the review videos coming out soon for these guys. And also, don't forget to check out my Twitter page. We'll be doing our Sunday and Thursday hobby hangouts as normal. We'll also be doing a few streams where we're playing some games. And we're going to be doing a really comprehensive entire stream dedicated to the new codexes and going through them and talking about what we like and we don't like in terms of the rules and offering tips and suggestions as well. So head to my Twitter, hit that follow button, and you get a notification when that codex stream comes out. Apart from that, if you'd like to speak to us offline, all my details are in the link tree below. We have our Hobbytime at Healys Discord, we have the Hobbytime at Healys Twitter and Instagram pages as well, and the Hobbytime at Healys Ko-fi page as well if you really want to throw some support to the channel. Otherwise, the last thing to say, as always, is please stay safe, stay positive, and above all, be an ambassador for your hobby. Thank you very much, folks. Goodbye.